Hello and welcome back to the Manufacturing Culture Podcast. I'm your host, Jim Mayer, and today we've got an episode that's just brimming with energy and innovation. But before we dive in, a quick reminder, check out all of our fantastic content at the manufacturingculturepodcast.com. Stay connected with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and now even TikTok for the latest updates and behind the scenes action. And of course, a big shout out to our sponsor, Spironi, for their absolutely unwavering support and the ability to bring these conversations directly to you. Now, folks, get ready for a vibrant and creative journey in today's episode as we welcome the dynamic Sami Birch, the Director of Marketing and Communications at Mission Design and Automation. Sami is not your average marketing guru. She's a former art kid who's been painting the automation space with her innovative ideas for over a decade. From putting robots on parade floats to racing a robot while icing a gingerbread house, Sami's unique approach to marketing has brought a fresh and engaging perspective to the industry. But here's the fun part. Sami isn't just an automation aficionado. She's a mom to a human, a husky, and an impressive collection of plants. This unique blend of professional prowess and personal passions makes her an inspiration to us all. From implementing Salesforce.com projects across the globe to managing JR Automation, CRM, and analytics, Sami's career is a testament to her dynamic skills and visionary approach. At Mission Design and Automation, they say experience meets innovation, and Sami embodies this motto perfectly. Sami was named the 2023 Young Professional of the Year for the City of Holland and has played a pivotal role in the record growth at Mission Design and Automation. When she's not revolutionizing the world of automation, you can find her indulging in arts and crafts with her 4-year-old bestie, playing fetch with her Siberian husky, or adventuring in the great outdoors with her husband and friends. And let's not forget her roots as a writer and graphic designer, where her creativity first blossomed. So buckle up, listeners. We're about to embark on a journey through the intersection of marketing, automation, personal growth, and company culture with the one and only Sami Birch. Get ready for insights, inspirations, and probably a few laughs along the way. Here we go. Welcome to the Manufacturing Culture Podcast, Sami. I am so happy that you're here. How are you doing?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for that beautiful intro. You make me feel so decorated, Jim.
You're very welcome. Sami, I've said this a lot on the show. This is one of my favorite parts about doing this is writing these intros. I was never in a space where I was able to be creative in my career until I started this. I was always the salesperson who just regurgitated whatever people like you told me to tell customers, right? And so here, all of a sudden, I have this creative outlet and I'm having a blast with it. So thank you for the compliment.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Fun.
And thanks for being on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We're here. This is episode 1 of our Strong Women in Manufacturing Month theme. Who better to kick off the month with than you? I mean, this is awesome. So I'm really excited about the conversation. We just had a flip-flopped interview a couple of weeks ago at IME, which you absolutely nailed, by the way. And it was a lot of fun for me to be on the other side of the questions, but I couldn't think of somebody better than you to ask me those questions. So thank you very much for that experience.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for the opportunity. That was kind of my first time doing an event like that where I was interviewing people more than like moderating a panel.
Sure.
And with a bunch of cameras in my face, which is, I'm usually like on the other side of the camera saying like, hey, let's do this way, or like, don't be afraid of the camera, even though I'm not the person being interviewed when I'm telling like engineers, like, don't be afraid of the camera. So it was a really good, I guess, spoonful of my own medicine, but I loved it. It was so fun. I felt so lucky and privileged to interview you on that. So yeah,
it was great. It was awesome. So Sami, tell us about your story. How did you get to where you are as director of marketing and communications for such an amazing company there in Michigan.
Yeah. Well, how much time you got? No, I'm just kidding. We'll
As
start
much time as you want to talk, man.
in a galaxy long ago in a galaxy far, far away. No, I'm just kidding. I I went to school for writing. Um,
Okay.
after having, took a while at university trying to find my footing where I belonged. So
Yeah.
I knew I liked the arts. I knew I was a skilled writer. That was something that always came pretty easy to me. But I don't want to say the typical thing, but I thought I wanted to be a psychiatrist. And then I thought I wanted to be a teacher. And so I was kind of jumping around all of the time. But I had already worked in, I guess, adjacent to manufacturing or maybe manufacturing space in the concrete industry. So when I was in high
Okay.
school, I got a job as like an admin person, front desk person at a concrete block manufacturer in my
Right on.
hometown. And so I had already, without really realizing it at the time, been working in not a huge manufacturing facility, but something that had to do with manufacturing. And I didn't really realize it. Um, so I had kind of like a knack for business in a way.
Yeah.
So when I
That's awesome.
finally figured out like this is what I want to do, or like actually you need to graduate at some point, so like pick a direction and finish it. Um, that's really what it came down to, honestly. So I got my degree in writing with my minor in business and focused a bit on marketing on my minor credits.
That's awesome.
Um,
Where'd you
and
go
then
to school?
I went to Grand Valley State University. It's
All right.
here in West Michigan.
Yeah. I lived in Kalamazoo, Sammy, for a very short portion of my life, but I remember Grand Valley State. Yes.
Yeah, it's grown so much. I mean,
Has
it's
it?
huge now. Even when I go there, I'm like, what road am I on in this campus? Like everything looks different, but that's great.
Yeah.
Um,
I digress.
so
I apologize.
no, that's good. So shortly after I graduated, I had actually moved back to my hometown, and uh, I think the dean of writing at the time called me because we had done some like website projects together, and we're in like this club uh, together.
Like a website design club?
Yes, a
That's
website
awesome.
design club. We met like once a month and went over like Drupal code and like how you could like use these different codes to like do different things for your website. And then we always like went for a beer and a burger after. Like there was like probably 10 of us. It was a
That
nice
sounds
little
like a pretty
meeting
fun
group of
time. Yeah.
people.
That sounds like a really
um,
good time.
yeah. So he had called me and was like, Sammy, I've got an opportunity that I think you'd be interested in. It's at this company named JR Automation. A former writing student is leading the department. I think you jive with her really well. What are you doing? And I was like, well, I'm bartending. And he's like, maybe you should check it out. And I was like, I will do that.
Yes.
So I headed out and to my interview at JR. And I had never really seen a robot before. So I worked in a place that made stuff, but it was not to this level
Right.
by any stretch of the imagination. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't. This is not. I don't know how I'm going to do this. There's no way I can learn anything about this. This is a super technical
Right.
industry. That's not me. I'm like doodling on my papers and like dreaming up random things. Uh, and I guess that's what a robot looks like. It's not like a square head with like, buttons for eyes.
An
So,
antenna.
uh, but I think I was pretty open about that to the team that was interviewing me. Like, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know a lot about this, but I can take information and make it understandable. Like, I
Yeah.
know I'm confident in my ability to do that. And I think the team there was amazing. My now good friend Robin Shoup, she has her own actually consulting business based on fun. So learning,
Wow.
like fun based learning.
I like it.
Now was an amazing leader, and so I had the privilege to work with her and help guide me on like my insecurities that I would never learn it. And actually, it did become like way easier to learn than I thought it would. And once you started realizing like, oh, this is like the show how it's made, and you just have to understand like this is the step before you see the thing.
Yeah.
This is like what happens. It became really exciting and interesting to me. And so I focused on writing for a couple of years there and then got the opportunity to join the marketing team. Um, which actually had just been created. There had never been a marketing team before
Really
at all. And so there are a couple of us that sort of forged a team there.
cool.
And then I got the opportunity shortly after that, as we were rapidly growing and had some plans for future like really increased growth goals and needed to focus on like how do we track our funnel, how are we even keeping track of opportunities, or making sure that we're the leads that we find, one, tracking how we're finding those leads, and then following through the funnel to make sure that nothing's getting lost, and people have the most up-to-date information about that. And somehow along the way I had like honed some skills in like analytics, and so
I
they
love
asked
how
if I
humble you are.
uh,
Somehow along the way.
honestly, Jim, I just don't know. I just say yes to things and figure it out on my way. It's the truth.
I
I'm
love
not
it.
going to tell you I like took a night class or, went down this whole journey dedicated to learning something. It was sort of like, you better jump off this cliff and learn to fly on your way. Like,
Wow. All
and I
right.
loved it. Like,
Yeah,
it's opened so many doors for me. And also I had great team members who taught me a lot and were patient with me needing to learn um, everything there is to learn. And I did go to a Salesforce class. So full disclosure, I spent a week in New York at Salesforce.
okay. Okay.
Okay.
Salesforce University.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a certificate.
I've been through that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. um, so that was awesome. That was like, man, some like old dreams of wanting to be in international business. And I did like wanted to be an international business student. And I was like, oh, I'm not good at math. Like, I don't think I'll ever make it.
Mm.
Um, Actually, then it sort of came full circle. Like, wow, you didn't end up going that path through education,
Right.
but that materialized around you through different avenues, which is really cool. So then I had the opportunity to bring all of our newly acquired entities into the same system and be kind of the first person that users went to make sure, like, hey, does this stuff work? What do you need? How do we make sure that we're making this process most efficient and helpful for you? And then be able to gather data and make informed decisions based on what we were gathering. So,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
Singapore, Romania, France, and
Wow.
quite a few states in the US. That entire time sort of feels like, wow, I did that. That's crazy. It's sometimes you forget, feels like a fever dream.
I bet. I bet. That's fun though. I mean, traveling for work can be tedious, but when you get to go to new places like that, it's kind of fun.
Yeah, and it was a perfect time of my life. I wasn't married, I didn't have kids, I didn't have my dog yet, so
Perfect.
no, I guess we
Yeah.
did have our dog. I remember FaceTiming my dog
Did
from
you
my hotel
really?
room. Put
That's
Benjamin on the phone.
amazing. What's his name?
Benjamin.
Oh, a Siberian husky named Benjamin.
Yeah.
Does he chat with you? Is he one of those dogs that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you've got to get him started on a conversation unless he like really wants a treat, and then he won't like let you forget that he wants a treat. But yeah, he'll sing.
That's
Sometimes it
awesome.
gets real chaotic, but it's good.
Okay.
So then, yeah, so was doing that for a while, up until I had a baby. And then very shortly after I returned to work after maternity leave, I'm talking weeks, COVID shut everything down and we were all sent home.
Uh,
And just speaking freely as a woman in the industry, like I needed to go back to work. Like I was a new mom and obviously like blessed to spend time with my child, but I really needed that routine back into my life for my own mental health. And we had a good support system for care for our child. So it really was like I was looking forward to like getting kind of my footing back. And then it was
yeah.
like you have to go home and stay there.
Right.
So I was like, okay, and working from home for a while. And then I got a call from a former colleague, Scott Lindemann. I shouldn't even call him a colleague. He used to be the president of the company that I worked at. He called me one day and just was like, hey, I just checking in. How are things going? I've got an opportunity that you might be interested in, and I just want to know if you'd want to come for a conversation. And I'm so glad I did that. It was honestly weird because they're an essential business, and so they were still, and they didn't have, it's very small at the
Yeah.
time, and so they didn't have strict like guidelines. I mean, obviously masking and stuff, but you
Right.
could like be in the same room with other people. And when I
Yeah.
remember my first day, I was like, is this allowed? I've only been at home and the grocery store and the pediatrician for months. Like, is this okay? And
Yeah.
um and it was. And I was like, I don't know, this seems a little risky because my job is secure. I have a great job. I work at a really good company, but something was calling me to like do this because I wanted to do more writing and creative work. And I saw the opportunity here to do that and taken all this experience that I've learned about growing a business, about implementing systems, about processes, and knowing that this company now needed some guidance in these areas um, felt really exciting to me. So I
Yep.
was like, we'll see what happens. And then I moved over to Mission. And, they didn't even have social media at the time. It was a
Really.
very small, we weren't in the building that I'm sitting in now. We were in a smaller shop that is now our CNC machining, like machine and fab
Yeah.
shop, but it was very small. Um,
Wow.
so it's been really, really cool to see like, and they were a great little business for sure.
Yeah.
But it's been really fun to like be able to be part of and see the journey. And, now we're full in our, second building that's, 3 times the size as the other one. So it's been a really, really cool experience. And now we've got, multiple people on the communications team, and it's just been
Wow.
really exciting.
So did you build the marketing team at Mission like basically from scratch?
Yes.
Wow. That's impressive.
Thanks. There's only a few of us, honestly, and we all wear a couple hats. But I've got a phenomenal team. Some people that had prior experience in manufacturing, some that didn't, and yeah, it's a great group. And then we also our fearless leader Ryan Lillibridge. I don't know if you've met him yet, but
I
he's
have
great,
not.
and he's also a visionary as well as Scott. And so they give us a lot of freedom and safety to say, let's try some stuff and see how it goes. And if it's not the right thing, let's not do it again.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, what are your wild ideas? Let's hear them.
Well, that's a big deal. I mean, this is a manufacturing culture podcast, right? And one of the biggest deals in culture is that feeling of empowerment. And it sounds like you have that ability to try new things without fear of failing, right? And I think that's a big deal in manufacturing, any type of manufacturing where people aren't feeling like they can try new things because if they do, it'll lead to scrap or it'll lead to a mistake, and that failure is unacceptable.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
pretty neat.
Yeah. Of course, there's like use your best discretion, like for sure.
Yeah.
But like, but it's, we're pretty scrappy about some of the stuff we do. We don't have a huge like uh,
Budget.
team or budget that we're working with. We
Yeah,
get really creative on a lot of the stuff that we do. So
that's awesome.
yeah,
So you're a badass professional. You're a working mom. You're in a field that is, automation and robotics. And I will say, from my experience at IME, that side of manufacturing seems to be a lot more diverse than the side that I'm historically used to being in on the machining side, right? So how has it been navigating this career that you've had from JR to Mission, being this badass woman in somewhat male dominated, even though it's less than what I'm used to, it's still somewhat male dominated field.
sure. Yeah, great question. I'm going to start by saying I have such an amazing leadership team who wants more diverse voices in the room. And I remember one time we were in one of our conference rooms, and I'm often the only woman in the room.
Right.
A lot of times I'm the youngest person in the room.
Okay.
But that's changing. But I remember one day, and this sort of just tells the story of how it kind of is, which I am so grateful for, is one day it wasn't like, I don't feel like I belong at this table, but I was like leaning back against like the counter instead of sitting around the table. And Ryan was like, Sammy, take a seat at the table, like come on, we
That's awesome.
want to hear what you have to say. And so I'm really grateful for the leadership team that I've had that does, I think, listen to women voices. Scott always says that Melissa, who's our office manager, Melissa and Sammy are in charge of this place. They run the place. Like, and so there is like, there is that here, but I will say I've definitely, and I think every woman in our industry can probably agree or feel this way. Like either I'm like talking about something in a group of like two men and myself, and like I'm an expert on it, and they will only look at the man that's standing next to me for like the real answer.
Right.
Or
The real answer.
yeah, it's just one of those things that I think tends to happen. And I will say also, man, I don't want to use this term, but there are times where like people really mansplain stuff to me. And I'm like, thank you, I got it. Like, I do know a little bit about this, but it's like, so I wonder too, like, is that a me thing? I'm not like going to tell you my whole resume as we're starting to have a conversation for you to believe that I do this. But if I were a dude, would you need to hear my
Exactly.
qualifications in order to think I know what we're talking about here?
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess a little bit of that, and I know it exists so much more in some larger companies, some more old school thought process, but I do think that I've been lucky to have a really supportive team who welcomes diverse voices of all different types. Everyone's got, I
Yeah.
mean, diversity can mean a lot of things, not just men and women or people of color and Caucasian
Yeah.
people. Like there's so many different levels of experience and lived, lifestyles and things that that other people don't. And I think we try to celebrate that.
That's awesome. Good for you guys. You guys hiring?
Always hiring.
Okay. Keep me in mind if you ever come across a role that I can do from Phoenix and still
Yeah.
do the podcast. um, uh, something else that jumped out at me as you're telling your story was, that need to go back to work as a young mom, right? As a mom early in the stage of momming, um, that need to go back to work and for schedule for mental health. How have you been able to balance that work-life balance uh, as a mom? I mean, when we were at IAB, you walked outside to go FaceTime the kiddo, right?
Yep.
Um, eh, how do you balance all that?
Yeah. Thanks for asking. This is something that I am continually working on, but it is a matter of boundaries and prioritization. So
Okay.
as much as I would have liked to stay at the happy hour and talk to everybody, my priority was saying goodnight. So we have the
Yeah.
technology to do that, and while I'm not there physically, I can be present at least for part of it for bedtime. So
Yeah.
um, I was lucky to see. I knew I would see you the next day. There's just like
Absolutely.
certain times where you have to say like I can't be there physically, but I know I can be there. So that's what I'm going to choose to do. From a work standpoint, I used to work a lot more hours before I was a mom. I used to feel like hustle culture for sure.
Yeah.
And realizing that my value to a company isn't in my hours worked. And, some of that I think is
Awesome.
hard for a lot of people. I know it's been a challenge for me. So, but, reminding myself, like, why do you do what you do? Like,
Yeah.
obviously, let's push the industry forward, but like your main priority, at least mine is hands down, and I think most could agree, is my child. And so, um, there's just times where you just have to cut yourself off or say like, this will have to wait for tomorrow,
Yeah.
because it's time to go. And
Yeah.
like, my team's really flexible. Like, I do dance class every Wednesday, and it's like, don't schedule me after 2:30 p.m. on Wednesdays because I got to be in a good headspace to leave and make sure then I'm ready for that. So,
Yeah. That's
um,
awesome.
and just figuring out, we're not technically hybrid, but we're really flexible about things that need to get done. So,
Cool.
yeah.
Do you think that that hustle culture or the culture that you were caught up in before becoming a mom was partly because of the need for women to work twice as hard to get just as far in certain careers?
I think that does exist for sure. For me, I think, well, I guess I haven't really like deep dove into that a ton, like a need to prove myself or, but I just had so much to do, honestly, that I was like, how are we going to get this
Okay.
done? I won't work,
Yeah.
10, 11 hours a day to make
Yeah.
sure we get it done. And I think, that's okay for some sprints for sure. And I think I shouldn't say it should be expected, but like if you're engaged in the work that you're doing and you care
Right.
about the progress of your projects, then it doesn't feel like, oh my gosh, my boss is making me do this thing. It never felt like that for me. It was like, no, this is what needs to get done and we're going to do it.
Yeah.
Um, but now there's just different variables in my life that like take priority to projects. And I think anyone could agree that that's where your priorities should be set.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And uh, that's me starting my own company was a result of me traveling for 13 years, 12 years, and missing a lot of birthday parties and ballet recitals and soccer games and practices. Uh, and I missed a lot of that for my kids. But for me, it was also, I wasn't there for my wife. My wife was here alone doing all the things all the time. Right. And starting this company was my shot at, okay, I'm going to be home more than I'm gone for the first time since my wife and I have been married. And I'm still traveling some, but it's not as much as I used to. Right. And so it's all the what is important type of thing. Right.
Yeah.
Um, Sammy, marketing, communications, plays a huge role in company culture and vice versa. Um, Talk to us about your view of the intersection of marketing, communications, and company culture, and what kind of role do they play with each other?
Yeah. I think the way that you communicate or the environment you build around your brand or what work feels like when you go there or um, is it okay if I use the word like the vibe that you create makes a
Oh yeah,
difference. And I think we're pretty intent like at least here we're pretty intentional about making sure that employees feel like they're taken care of and we in our values state like these are the things we care about and employees is always listed first even before customers because we know if we take care of our employees they will take care of our customers. We know if people feel good about where they work and who they're working with that is going to that's going to continue into and be shown through their work. I feel the same way about marketing to customers. If you can create an environment where your customer wants to be, if you can build great relationships, if you can build a brand that they trust and they think of, they're fun to be around, they're the environment you feel when you're at mission, is a place that you want to be, well, then they're going to want to keep working with you. I think it really, the bottom line, I think starts with trust, building trust. I
okay,
trust my employer that they have my best intentions in mind. I trust my supplier that they're in this with me and we do integration for custom projects so it's different every time. You have to deep dive into technical things that are different every single time and put a puzzle together
yeah,
together for the project to be successful. And we feel like it's our responsibility that when our customer comes to us and says we need this project to do this thing, that okay, now it's our job to make sure that happens. And we hope through marketing, through the way we communicate, through the environment that we create, through the level of engagement that our employees are involved, that we're going to be successful. And that's a good way to practice business. Now, sometimes you have to do things with a handshake or say like, I'm going to get back to you. Yeah, you have to.
right,
So sometimes you have to just take care of the stuff without a whole like approval process to like say yes to the work that's ahead of you. Yes, because that's taking care of your customer. So that's what you're going to do. Now, sometimes that doesn't work for every business and can get messy and can be risky to do things that way. But so far for us, I think, and that's not the way we traditionally operate, but I think it does is the way that you want to, at least for us, if somebody calls us and is like, I need help. My robot's down. Um, this is like speaking from as a service example.
Yeah.
Our service manager told me this morning. Got on the call, guy's robot's down, and they need help getting it back up. He could have said, okay, I will send, let's send me an invoice. I'll get on a plane and we'll come out and take a look at it. It'll cost you this amount of money. It's going to take this long. Or like, can you just walk me through what's going on?
Yeah.
Let's just see if we can take care of it here. And I think that's the way we want to operate. I shouldn't say I think. That is the way we want to operate. We want to be the trusted partner
Yeah.
that manufacturers and people requiring automation want to work with.
That's awesome.
I kind of went into the weeds there, but
No, I'm glad you did. I, I mean, I also view automation as a huge and robotics as a huge way to improve company cultures in manufacturing, right? Because you're taking away some of those repetitive jobs. You're taking away some of the things that can cause disengagement, can cause that misalignment internally. So I'm glad we're kind of pivoting and going down that route because I do, from your standpoint as director of marketing and communications for an automation and robotics company, your job is to talk about that cultural solve of problems that exist within organizations. Tell us a little bit about that.
absolutely. So a lot of manufacturers know they need to like automate. If they don't, their competitor is they need, and in order to keep up, they're going to need to do it. They've got people working literal back breaking jobs, and uh, turnover might be high. There's a labor shortage, and so what we try to do is we want to talk to our customers and find out exactly what their pain points are, and then educate not just them but other people in the industry. There's better ways to do this, even though it feels super daunting because you don't know where to start. Maybe
Yeah.
you've been operating at this level with 10 people on let's say an assembly line for 50 years, and now it's like I can't keep up. I can't find people. Like, it worked before, now we're selling more product and we can't keep up with our competition because of X, Y, and Z, but mostly because you've got people getting hurt at work. You've got people who don't want to be there because there's way better jobs than that.
Yeah.
And so they know they need to automate. A lot of times they don't know where to start. And so we try to educate on, let's start with some low hanging fruit. What would be easy? What can we make sure is successful? You don't have to boil the ocean. Let's just start small and figure out what's our biggest pain point. Is it easy? I guess it doesn't have to be easy, or maybe you start with what's the easiest.
Yeah.
What can we do to be successful to get your team ready for some robotics or automation? Because also there's a stigma around implementing
Absolutely.
robots for sure in manufacturing at some of these companies. And what we can find, and I think a lot of, as a younger generation is coming up into the workforce, having robots is really cool. These kids have seen robots now for years, and it's
Absolutely.
not a foreign thing like it was for me. And I mean, I'm not that old. I didn't join the workforce that long ago. And I wasn't really exposed to it. But like, my daughter knows what robots are, of course, because I'm in automation, but also there's a ton of cartoons. There's so many
Right.
books now about engineering. Okay, I'm getting in the weeds now again, but just saying, like,
Go.
if you
Yeah.
have, okay, I'll circle it back. More people are going to want to be working with cool tech, not in a dirty situation, not where their hands have to get dirty, but they grew up playing video games. So maybe they want to be programming robots.
Absolutely. Yep.
And so those are just some ways to like help your team adopt to robots.
Yeah. No, I think that's perfect. And uh, don't apologize for going into the weeds. We can record like I said, as long as you want to keep talking. But I think there's some truth to that, right? Because when I grew up, and I'm older than you, but I'm not like Jetsons old. But I remember watching Jetsons reruns and Bugs Bunny reruns, right, from the 70s and 60s, and the robotics in there were just so foreign. Everybody was like, "There's no way that is what a robot will look like."
Mm-hmm.
Now we have robots, and these kids are seeing what robots they see. I mean, my kids loved watching the video of Jake's dancing dog robot from IME reception, right? Like,
Totally.
that stuff is really freaking cool to these kids. And to your point, if they enjoy playing video games, then maybe that's the pathway for them. And I see robotics and automation pulling in the next generation. Whereas I think a lot of companies that employed the older generation, baby boom generation, primarily, those are the ones that are going to be resistant because they're not feeling the pain yet of needing people that to fill those roles. But if they do that now, and start implementing robots and automation now, then they'll be okay when those baby boomers start retiring in 3 to 5 years, right? Am I off base? I mean, this is your world. This is not my world, but am I off base on that?
No, you're absolutely right. Now would be the time to get started, even if it's just on a small scale that can grow. You've got a workforce that an incoming workforce that's going to expect more from their employer, hands down. You know that. I know that.
Yeah.
We know that. So just going to work is not going to be enough. You need to have reasons why they find value in what they're doing. They want to say, I'm working with this cool stuff. I'm learning more about programming now that I get to interact with this robot that I never even was presented with thoughts that this creates for me before.
Right.
Not only that, kids are like, I think it's like a nationwide push, at least in Michigan, like kids are learning way more about STEM, engineering, robotics. There's so much more access to that. So the workforce is going to be ready to be doing more of that soon.
Yeah.
And
No, I agree.
as baby boomers start to retire, there's going to be a gap. So if you're a manufacturer who already has a labor issue, it's not going to get better by not implementing better technology to do your process. It won't. It's going to set you back.
So, what do you say to the? I mean, and let's talk specifically the side of manufacturing that I've known for 20 years, right? The machine shop side, because I see the metal manufacturers being way more reluctant to implement automation and robotics than textile, than food and beverage, than some of these other industries that are they do have historically repetitive, dangerous, painful jobs, right? When we're looking at metal manufacturers and they're standing at a CNC machine, sometimes they're programming on the machine, sometimes they're not. It's cycle start. It's pushing green buttons. It's taking out parts. It's that geometric dimensions and tolerances, right? How do we automate that side, or is there an idea of how we can approach some of these metal manufacturers to have them get that? I guess.
Totally. Absolutely. Um, there's some emerging technologies, and it's been done for a little bit here, using collaborative robots to do machine tending. So we've seen that here. We've seen it, I think maybe at some shows, but also so that's just for tending. So that's a way. If you're
Sure.
struggling to, you can have a robot tending while you maybe free up somebody to do something else.
Right.
Um, and it doesn't automate your entire machining process for sure, but it's also a way to start implementing technology, and making your workforce more efficient.
Yeah.
Another way, we've got a company here in Holland. They're called Impact Fab, and I got to know some of their team. I was in a leadership program last year where I got to learn different things about our community. And on
That's cool.
Manufacturing Day, we went to Impact Fab, and I noticed that they had a universal robot when I was there. And I was like, that's interesting. They only had one. It's kind of back in the corner, and they sort of like brushed it off a little bit when they talked about it.
Okay.
Well, I got to know the owner of that company. His name's Ross. And actually, not that long ago, maybe 4 months ago, I gave him a call to say, hey, I'm doing a little bit of customer research. And I just want to know, I know we didn't sell your robot. I was there though for a tour, and I just wanted to know, like, how's your team adapting to using that robot in your fab shop?
Yeah.
Do they like it? Do they hate it? Does it sit in the corner and collect dust? What's the scoop? So he came out and kind of walked us through, we got it. There was a lot of great educational tools to set it up, and training videos. So our entire team got to do that. Now, not everybody uses it all the time. but the team has adapted to it way beyond what we thought they would. And the person who really surprised us that uses it the most is our oldest employee,
That's so cool.
which is a really cool story. Because that's not what you would expect. You wouldn't have expected that that would be the person who's into it. So I think also just enabling the team. There's some resistance, but if you never do it because you think your team's not going to use it, then it will never happen, and you'll fall
Yeah,
short. And
I love
so
it.
that they use the robot doesn't work for everything at that fab shop, and they don't
Yeah,
use it for everything. But it wasn't a super huge investment. It's one robot station, and they can test it out. And if the volume gets to be to where they need more, then they can, take kind of stair step their way into more. And I think that's the approach that a lot of machine shops and even manufacturers that don't have a ton of automation integration but know they need to get started, just start small and stair step your way, because you don't want to invest in billions of dollars worth of equipment or millions of dollars worth of equipment for it not to work, and then you can't do it again. Like
yeah,
once that fails on the first time, if it is a massive investment and it never works, then you're never going to want to do it again, and then you're in a real pickle.
absolutely. Then you're in big trouble.
Yeah,
Absolutely, because I mean,
because
at
the
that
team's
point,
not going to trust that you can automate anything or
exactly.
that any of the technology will work, which is why you also need to work, I think, with a great integrator who understands your problem and also isn't just trying to sell you a ton of millions of dollars worth of equipment. They really want to see you be successful and help you build a plan to get to where you need to be for production. But maybe it takes a little bit. Maybe it takes a few different steps, a few different machines. But that's the right way to do it, because you're fact finding as you go. You're proving things out, instead of saying like, I'm just going to buy this equipment because I think it'll work for my process.
Yeah, love it, Sammy. What are three? I need you to put like all of your hats on right now. Your robot and automation hat, your marketing and communication hat. What are three things in Sammy Birch's expertise that companies can do to improve their company culture?
I think start by talking to your employees and asking questions.
Okay.
Um, we do surveys. We encourage like team meetups. I guess that leans into my second one. Create conditions for connection.
Oh, I
You
like
have
it.
um, if somebody feels not valued at work, they're not going to give their full self, right? So if you can build a community around these people where work feels like this is part of my life and I like coming here, I enjoy my work, or maybe I don't love what I'm doing right now, but I've talked to my manager and they're open to these ideas for training for me to do some other stuff. And so this is part of my path and part of my journey. And I trust my manager.
Yeah.
Creating that type of environment, I think, is a key to being successful.
Okay.
So that's two.
I like it.
I think the third one is be vulnerable. I was going to say, like, don't take yourself too seriously. No one's getting out alive anyway, right? So we all, I think, struggle with that from time to time. But if you are willing to kind of like lay down your sword, then other people will too. Or if you are willing to share things that create a place of safety for employees, then I think it allows others to feel open, um, to be their full selves. And I think that's what you want with your workforce.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's amazing how trapped, I guess, an employee can feel when there's not a standard of vulnerability that's set, right? Because, and this is just speaking from experience, I've worked for companies that have 4,000 employees. I've worked for organizations that I was one of 10, right? Um, but in both size, all size organizations that I've worked for, that vulnerability piece was always an issue. And so I felt like I had to then be somebody that, or portray a sense of me that I may not have been, right? So it's a very trapping feeling when vulnerability isn't the standard set by leaders like yourself. So whoever reports to you is very lucky that they have a leader like you.
Well, thank you. I was going to say on that note, like as a leader, I think it's more important. It's the most important for you to
Yeah.
say, especially if it's like, look, I don't know what I'm doing on this project either. Like, we're figuring this out together.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming along with me, because I also am figuring it out. And I think where people can get into trouble, and where I've been super lucky that I have a leader who is very emotionally intelligent and, you know, is willing to say, like, I don't know either, we're figuring this out.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It creates a space where people are like not afraid to be wrong, or like not afraid to share ideas, because it's
Yeah.
like, we're figuring it out. We don't know what the answer is, but like, let's get
We'll get there.
creative and share ideas. And um creating that place of safety and belonging, I think, is
I
just
love it.
go up Maslow's hierarchy
Yeah. I
and
love
back
that.
down it.
I love it. And you brought up such a key word there in collaborate. I mean, we're all taught when we're growing up that compromise. I have a younger brother. Do you have a sibling?
Yep, I've got an older brother, a younger sister, and three step siblings that are all older than me.
And so you were probably taught compromise, work this
Hmm.
out and compromise, right? And what I've learned as an adult is compromise just means neither one of us gets what we want, right? Let's
Hmm.
work together, let's collaborate and figure out how we both get exactly 100% of what we want, right? And so it's
Yep.
this wild mindset shift that we all have to go through, but collaboration is such a huge key, I think.
Yeah, and I think in order for that to be successful, you have to have good communication.
Yeah, which all brings us back to Sammy Birch. Sammy, the last question that I ask all my guests is, what haven't I asked you that you want to share with the listeners of the podcast?
Yeah, I've got a great one. That it speaks to the culture here at Mission, and also to some of my values, is if companies can create like, one thing that we did last year is create what's called the Mission Impact Team, where we are an employee driven team that reaches out to that partners with local nonprofits to do fundraising, to do volunteer events. And we get to come up with all these employee events throughout the year, where people are able to pay money to participate. Or we just sold roses this week for Valentine's Day, made a
That's
little
awesome.
bit off the top, but we got them for a great price. And so either way, employees were going home with roses for far less than what they'd spend at the store. Um,
Awesome.
it that's So we have an impact on the community. We create camaraderie, and I think if you're a business looking for ways to boost up employee engagement, first start by asking questions on whether or not they'd be interested in what they care about. But then create ways that, if it's just employees who are, there's no full-time person dedicated to this. It's kind of not on the, yeah, I was going to say, yeah, it's on the side, basically, where we put some time into organizing, fundraising, keeping track of what we've
Yeah,
raised and how we're going to distribute it. But our employees all nominate local nonprofits at the beginning of the year. Then we set out a vote to the entire employee. The top three are the ones selected for the year, and then we raise money all year for them.
it's awesome.
So that's something that's near and dear to me. I believe in, obviously, community engagement and supporting, people uh, outside with varying needs. And that's a way that you can. Our team loves to do this kind of stuff, and there's all different activities throughout the year. So it's not just like what Sammy and her team wants to do, which might be more like artsy, fun
Sure.
things. There's like, they did clay shooting. We've done Habitat for Humanity, where we built, worked on a home that was going up for
Oh,
build.
cool.
And so if there's people on your team that have an interest in this, I think it's a great way to not only support your community, but help build engagement and communication among your team, and help your teams build stronger bonds.
I love it. You're doing a great job. Like it's awesome to hear you talk about it. You've got such a passion for what you do, for leading the team, for the space that you're in. It's just really neat. Thank you very much, Sammy, for being on today. I'm very honored to have had you as a guest.
It's an honor to be on. Thank you so much.
Well, you're very welcome. And folks, that's a wrap on today's episode of the Manufacturing Culture Podcast. It's been a journey with Sami Birch, from her insights into evolving company cultures in manufacturing to her inspiring role as a mom and a leader and badass in her space. We've covered a spectrum of topics that are sure to spark conversations in workplaces everywhere. Remember, you can revisit all the golden nuggets from today's episode and explore more at manufacturingculturepodcast.com. A special thanks again to Spironi for their amazing support and sponsorship. Their dedication to excellence and tool management systems mirrors the outstanding cultures we talk about on here. And also, I have to give a shout out to Shop Fuller Coffee for keeping us energized and focused. Don't forget to use the promo code SkillUpAZ for a fantastic deal on your next coffee order. Folks, none of the proceeds from Shop Floor Coffee come to the Manufacturing Culture Podcast. You get 10% off when you use the SkillUpAZ promo code. But more importantly, the proceeds go to Skill Up Arizona to help support apprenticeship and sponsorship opportunities. Now, I need your help to spread the word. I need you to share this episode with your friends, your colleagues, your grandma, anyone passionate about creating positive and productive work environments. Your shares and recommendations help us grow and bring more exciting content your way. And if you enjoyed today, or even if you didn't, please take a moment to rate and review us, but give us 5 stars. Say something in the comments like, Sammy's awesome, I love the hair, something along those lines. Your feedback not only helps us improve, but also helps others find us. Because every time you rate or review the show, it rockets us up the charts on Apple, on Spotify, and on YouTube. So until next time, folks, keep shaping those amazing cultures in your workplaces. And remember, every step toward a better culture is a step toward a more successful future. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode. Have a great day and keep making things.